Hey, it's me, SK Nicholas. Story time with SK. No, I was walking back from work earlier, and I remembered I used to work in a pub back in the day, 10 years ago now. I used to work in this pub for a year, and this pub was in High Wycombe, and it was called the Wendover Arms. It's still there, but it's completely changed now. But I remember I used to work there. I used to work there on a Friday and a Saturday night, and I used to get paid £5 an hour, cash in hand, and I think I used to earn about sort of £30, and I never used to see any of that money because as I was working, I would be drinking pints. I would pour myself a pint, write it down on the slate, and then at the end of the night, I would um, I would have to pay up, and I would have got through several pints. Plus, then I had to get the taxi home. So I worked in this pub, and I made no profit. I made no money, um, and it was it's kind of a horrible experience. It was this pub on a in a sort of a housing estate, and you had the locals that used to go in, the older people, they sort of liked me. But all the youngsters that went in, and I was in my early 20s at this point, so they would have been about the same age, they didn't like me. They eyed me with suspicion because I was at university and they didn't like that. And I had a beard and they didn't like that. And they had a big issue with the fact that I had a ginger beard, and they couldn't understand why I didn't shave it off. And I always had people come up to me, these youngsters come up to me saying, "Why don't you shave your beard off?" And I would be like, "Why do I need to?" I'd be like, "Because it's ginger." So yeah, and they thought I was gay as well because I was sort of reasonably well spoken and I wasn't sort of a lad. So I used to go in there sort of every sort of Friday and Saturday night and have to put up with all this shit from the youngsters, as it were. And the guy that ran it was this guy called John, big sort of alcoholic guy, knocking back scotches all night long. We'd get pissed. He'd have massive arguments with his wife. I saw his wife in the nude once. In above the pub, there was sort of it's where they lived, him and his wife and his kids. And one day, he said to me, "Go upstairs and get something or whatever." And I went upstairs, and his wife, Lisa, was got out the shower, and I walked upstairs. I went on the landing, and she was in the nude, and I was like, "Fuck me," and yeah, wasn't nice. Another time, I saw a man um, have his willy pleasured by a woman. I remember the pub was empty, it wasn't a busy pub, and John said, "Go to the cellar and get some ice." And as I was on my way, I sort of went round the corner, and there was this guy, and he must have been about 60, bald-headed chap, and there was this woman who was in her 40s, and she had her head in his lap. She was doing something to him, and again I just thought, why am I doing this? And another time, probably one of my lowest moments, was when they planned a fancy dress, kind of like 70s night, and they got hired this DJ that was going to play, like Saturday Night Fever and Grease and all that shit. And John thought that it would be, would be a great event. It would draw everyone in, and he said, "Go and get a fancy dress." So I got this shirt with the collar and a chain, and I got this wig which was supposed to be like a John Travolta wig, and nobody else turned up in fancy dress, and I just had people coming in off the street and looking at me, and there I was behind the bar with this black wig and this big collar and this chain around my neck, and it was just like humiliating. But yeah, it's weird. I sort of go back now and I think about those memories. Another time I went into the cellar, and John said to me, there's a fridge, and in the fridge there's some juice. You need to go and get the juice. So I went down there, and I opened the wrong fridge, and it wasn't a vertical fridge, it was a horizontal fridge, and it was where at one point he'd stored all these vegetables, but unbeknown to me, it had been unplugged for months, and when I opened it, there was just all these rotten vegetables in there, and I genuinely thought I was going to pass out. And it's weird. I was thinking about this, and I was kind of thinking, in the grand scheme of things, these memories of working in this pub aren't particularly that interesting. But I think that it's kind of part of who I am. And I've mentioned working in a pub in a few times in my writing. But I kind of, it got me thinking, in terms of, again, if you don't capture your life, if you don't sort of write about your experiences, no one, nobody else will. Some people it won't be an issue. Some people I think are very much, well, life's about living, have fun, enjoy yourself, and that's it. Which I think, completely agree with that. But at the same time, I kind of think I want to document my life. That's why I write. I document who I am and what I am. Obviously, these are my first two books where I do that. Um, and it got me thinking about like Bukowski. Bukowski is one of my heroes. And you think, God, if Bukowski never documented his life, if he never wrote the prose that he did or wrote his poetry, nobody else would have. And all the books that he did, Ham and Rye, Post Office, Women, none of that would exist. And our glimpse into that world, we wouldn't have that. And it's the same with any kind of artist, writer, painter, musician, whatever. If that person didn't do what they did, we wouldn't have it. Look at the likes of Van Gogh, one of the great artists of ever. And just to think this guy only sold what one painting in his life, and he was ridiculed. But if he didn't do what he did, we wouldn't have the beautiful kind of paintings, the beautiful art that we know that is what is known worldwide. So I always think again, it's a big thing to capture your life, not only for your own sake, but again, if you can kind of address it in a certain way, if you can write about it in a certain way that draws people in, that's kind of incredible, isn't it? That you can take certain sort of humdrum, memories, and you can put them down onto paper, and you can entertain, you can sort of capture these moments, humdrum, beautiful. I worked with a guy. I wasn't friends with him, but when I worked in Hatfield for sort of several months, I remember there was this guy that used to work on night shifts, and I was on day shifts. And so when I was sort of starting at 7 in the morning, I would see him leaving, and his name was Carl Wheatley. I've mentioned this a few times. I think I wrote a blog about it. It's not in the second journal. I think it would end up being in the third journal. But yeah, I saw him around, nodded to him, fine, whatever. And I think one of my last week that I was working there, he came in shopping, and I saw him there, and he was with his little girl. He had a little girl, probably I think she was about 4 or something like that. I vividly remember seeing them, and then a few weeks later, I found out that he'd murdered her. He'd battered her to death, and it was incredible. Just think, my God, I remember seeing this guy around. He's the same age as me, he'd be in his early 30s now. I remember seeing this little girl, this beautiful little girl, and yeah, he battered her to death. And I think at one point he had tried super gluing her teeth in. He'd knocked out her teeth, and he tried super gluing them back in, so the authorities wouldn't find out. He'd actually won custody of this girl. He'd had a one night stand or something, had this kid, got the DNA test, found out that he was the father, won custody of this girl, and then yeah, short time later he battered her to death. And I just think, fucking hell. But again, it's those moments, isn't it? If I can capture that, doesn't bring her back, but yeah, it's those moments, isn't it? I remember writing a piece which again I'll probably go in the third journal. There was this kid I remember. He was like the friend of my ex-girlfriend's brother, and again this was probably about maybe 10 years ago. Remember what his name was? Anton. I think his name was Anton. He was sort of Russian, but he spoke sort of fluent English. I always remember sort of when I was dating this girl, I would always sort of see him around. And at one point, when I was working in the bookshop, when I used to go on my break, when I was working on a Sunday, I would see him. He used to work in this bicycle shop called Halford's, and I used to sort of bump into him when I was sort of having a cigarette outside the church, and we'd chat. And then yeah, he died of a drugs overdose. I think he took like it was cocaine overdose. I think he snorted something that was too pure or something. It's so bizarre, isn't it? That was 10 years ago. This kid's been dead now for 10 years. He was 17 when he died. And again, if I write about him, it doesn't bring him back, but it's again, you're writing about existence. You're writing about kind of just the human journey. And that it's what I've taken from Bukowski, Sartre, Camus, many others. And that's kind of what I'm doing, really. Just trying to sort of remember stuff and document things around me again, because if I don't do it, nobody else will. And it's interesting, isn't it, when I see and I chat to people that aren't writers, that aren't sort of in that sort of creative realm, and they live their lives, and they don't document it. They don't make any effort to kind of remember, to put down into words anything that's happened to them. And I think, God, it's a shame, isn't it? Because we've all got these stories, we've all got these unique stories to tell, and yet so many times we don't. We keep it to ourselves. My dad was telling me um, maybe a month or so ago, where there was when he was sort of a bit younger. I think I'd been born yet, but there was a boxer that was that sort of was living in Dunstable, my hometown, and it was this boxer called Cliff Fields, and he was a big kind of boxer back in the day. I think he sparred with like Muhammad Ali, but he was an alcoholic, so he never made the cut. He never sort of became who he should be. But there was a family get together, and there was a fight, and it went outside, and it went around the town, and then at one point, my dad and my uncle were sort of there, and Cliff Fields turned up and knocked out my uncle, just slapped him round the face. Just slapped him round the face, and my uncle flew back and fell in some bushes. And it's weird because my dad just told me that, and I was like, God, you've never mentioned that before. And again, we all have these memories. We all have these kind of these moments. Some are trivial, some are mundane, some are beautiful, poignant. And I think we should all try and capture them, because again, if we don't, who will? Obviously, you've got to try and be sort of halfway talented to to write about them in such a way that they're interesting, and of course you want to write about them in such a way that you kind of end on you end it in such a way that hopefully who the reader can kind of question their own lives. Can you end it with a question? I always try and end, or try and within every piece that I write, put a question in there. Make it so that someone reads what I do, and it makes them look at their own lives. It makes them kind of think, oh. So yeah, first journal, second journal. I might read a piece. I'm quite tired, as I always am. There's a piece here. Here we go. Here, yeah. Not like that, like this. From the second journal, written by me. Who would have thought? My 20s, they kind of came and went. Relationships, video games, books, boredom, drinking, boredom, quarry, detachment, people dying, illness, shit jobs, mortality, love, heartbreak, more boredom, poor diet, poor. And then I turned 30 and discovered I was leaving no documentation of this shit. So now I document and reminisce, and yeah, it makes me feel sad to think of those lovers that slipped through my fingers, and yeah, it makes me feel bad to think of the sense of apathy that had me in its grasp for so long. But this is what happens. Do I wish for a bullet to blow my brains to kingdom come? Of course. Do I wish to become just another face, enjoying a blameless life of mediocrity and weekend sex? You fucking bet. I should be looking forward to Christmas and spending time with the wife and kids. Should be planning the next holiday and making arrangements to play golf with the guys I work with down at the bank. But no, no wife, nor kids, nor holidays, nor golf, nor bank. Instead, it's writing this and writing that, and beer and drawings and books and the novel and the journal and then the next journal and this memory that hurts and that memory that hurts, and my aging reflection and masturbation where there should be birth. Maybe I'll take a week off, not write a single word. I keep saying this but never go through with it. The last time I went a week without writing was when Benicia and I went on holiday 18 months ago, just before we broke up. That was the last time things felt good. And then we split and my dad got cancer, and then my obsession with writing grew and grew and grew until it took over completely. But I have no regrets. We only have this one moment where we speak the truth or get flushed away with the turds. So here I am speaking my truth, and sometimes it makes sense and sometimes it doesn't, but that's not the point. Am I running? Am I chasing? Am I a lover or nothing more than a quitter? Can I make this thing work, or is it just an excuse to not be like everyone else? It's all of these things, and that's what makes it so beautiful. So yeah, another piece. Another little piece. Shall I read another? Shall I read another one? Knock it up to 20. I probably will. Let's have a look. Let's go for a dirty piece. Let's be disgusting. Um, this one isn't it's not disgusting. This is a nice one. Black tights. Black tights. She wears black tights while her legs cross and uncross beneath the table as we patiently wait for our food. It's Wagamamas on a Friday night after work. I'm drinking bottled beer while she sips a cup of green tea. The evening's young, and while her body speaks to me in a language that may or may not be Latin, the rain outside washes away our fears. Those curls of her hair, they could be symbols relating to some higher power, or perhaps they offer clues to what mood she'll be in when I bite her neck in the back row of the cinema after we've finished our meal. Those breasts she pushes together whenever we lean forward and kiss, they could just well be the meaning of life, and as much as I'm the dramatic kind, this time I'm not exaggerating. When our thinkers link as she recites one of her favourite poems, those from outside come in and shake their umbrellas, and as their soaked Primark bags fall to pieces, revealing their favourite choice of cheap underwear, I reach beneath the table and squeeze her knee. Looking into those eyes of hers, she smiles like a cat while unknowingly singing the lyrics to King Crimson's Moonchild, the song we were listening to when we first made love all those seasons ago. Leaning back in my chair, she hypnotizes as the town we both know changes with every passing minute. Books on sexual adventure, silver plimsolls and damp rolling tobacco, the scent of candles and washed hair as the river runs so quick as our eyes mirror over noodles swimming in Hungarian sauce. Those little toes of hers, how they tap 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 the piano keys my fingers struggle with for hours on end. Those pearly whites, how they shine like the moon as those without souls endlessly circle our table. We are shapeless, we are lovers, and no matter what they throw at us, we will devour whatever takes our fancy. So yeah, little bubbles of time and space. Again, if I didn't capture them, nobody else would. It's scary, isn't it? Two books worth of bubbles of time and space, joy, happiness, sadness, sex. It's there. I think everyone could do this. Everyone could put their lives into paintings, into books, but so many don't. And then they die, and then it's as if they never even existed. So yeah, existence. Yeah, that's it. My name's SK. I'm wandering now. I'll probably have a bath, cup of tea, I do some press ups. I'm not going to do press ups. This isn't product placement, but I am going to have a Whisper Gold. I love Whisper Golds. I could eat 5 of these a day. I'd have no teeth left, but I love them. So yeah, my name's SK. Get the journals. Treat yourself. If you don't, I'll bat you. I'll see you later. Take care.